The great council hall stretched for miles in every direction. Its walls were made of crystal that changed colors with the light. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in perfect rows, their eyes all focused on the center of the room. Where a single human stood, Captain Jake Morrison kept his back straight as he faced the judges. His blue uniform was clean and pressed, but it could not hide the tension in his shoulders. Behind him sat the other human representatives, including Ambassador Lisa Carter, who had spent the last 3 years trying to save their species from this moment. The High Arbiter was a tall creature with skin like polished stone. His forearms moved in slow patterns as he spoke, and his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "We have gathered here today to decide the fate of the human species," he said. "For 50 years, they have been part of our galactic community. For 50 years, they have brought nothing but trouble." Jake remembered his first day in space when he was just a young pilot. The galaxy had seemed so full of wonder then. So many different species, each with their own culture and history. The humans had been so excited to join this great community. Among the stars, but things had gone wrong from the start. The first incident happened on Kepler Station. A human trader named Bob Williams had gotten into a fight with a Zentari merchant over the price of rare metals. What should have been a simple disagreement turned into a brawl that destroyed half the trading post. The Zentari claimed it was unprovoked violence. The humans said Bob was defending himself from being cheated. Then came the colony wars on Proxima 3. The humans had been given permission to settle on the planet's southern continent. But when they discovered that the soil was perfect for growing Earth crops, they wanted to expand their territory. The native species, the Proxians, said no. The humans built farms anyway. The Proxians attacked the farms. The humans fought back. Before anyone knew what was happening, 3 star systems were involved in the conflict. The peace treaty that ended the Proxima War was supposed to solve everything, but it only made things worse. The humans agreed to pay for the damage they had caused, but they also demanded better treatment from the other species. They wanted equal voting rights in the council. They wanted their own trade routes. They wanted to be treated like equals instead of newcomers. The other species did not like this. They had been building their civilization for thousands of years, before humans even learned to make fire. Why should these aggressive newcomers get the same rights as the founding members of the galactic community? More incidents followed. A human exploration team discovered an ancient alien artifact and refused to turn it over to the proper authorities. Human colonists on Delta 7 started a mining operation without getting permission from the planetary government. A human diplomat punched an alien ambassador during a formal dinner party. Each time, the humans had explanations. Each time, they said they were just protecting themselves or standing up for what was right. But the other species saw only violence and chaos. Ambassador Carter stood up when the High Arbiter called her name. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her voice was strong when she spoke. "Your honors, humanity has made mistakes. We do not deny this. But we have also contributed much to the galactic community. Our scientists have made important discoveries. Our engineers have built amazing things. Our artists have created beauty that has touched beings across the galaxy." The High Arbiter's stone face showed no emotion. "Tell us about the Vega Station incident," he said. Carter's shoulders sagged. The Vega Station incident was the worst thing humans had ever done. A human security officer named Chris Johnson had been working at the station when a group of pirates attacked. During the fight, Johnson had used an experimental weapon that was supposed to be non-lethal. But something went wrong. The weapon created a chain reaction that destroyed not just the pirates, but half the station and everyone on it. 12,000 beings died that day. Johnson died too, but that did not bring back the victims. "It was an accident," Carter said, quietly. "Johnson was trying to save lives, not take them." "The result was the same," the High Arbiter replied. 12,000 beings died because a human chose to use an untested weapon in a crowded space station. This is exactly the kind of reckless behavior that makes humanity too dangerous to remain in civilized space. The trial had been going on for 3 years. Every human mistake, every violent incident, every moment of poor judgment had been examined in detail. The humans had tried to defend themselves, but the evidence was overwhelming. In 50 years, they had been involved in more conflicts than some species had in 500 years. Captain Morrison had been chosen to represent the human military because he was one of their best officers. He had served in the colonial wars and had seen the worst of what humans could do, but he had also seen the best. He had seen human soldiers risk their lives to save alien civilians. He had seen human doctors work around the clock to treat wounded enemies. He had seen human engineers build bridges and schools and hospitals on worlds that had never known such things, but none of that seemed to matter now. The High Arbiter raised one of his forearms, and the chamber fell silent. "The Council has reached its decision," he announced. "After careful consideration of all evidence, we find that humanity poses an unacceptable threat to galactic peace and stability." Jake felt his heart sink. He had known this moment would come, but hearing the words still hit him like a physical blow. "The human species is hereby banished from all civilized systems," the High Arbiter continued. "You have 72 standard hours to evacuate all human presence from Council space. Any violation of this decree will result in immediate military action." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered. Others seemed sad. A few looked worried about what this decision might mean for the future. Ambassador Carter stepped forward again. "Your Honors, we request safe passage corridors for our civilian populations. There are over 40 million humans scattered across Council territory. Many of them are children, elderly, or sick. They need time to prepare for such a journey." The High Arbiter considered this for a moment. "Granted. But know this, humans, you will not be welcome back. The galaxy has chosen peace over your chaos." As the great gavel fell, ending the trial, Captain Morrison caught Carter's eye. Both of them knew something the Council did not know. Something that would change everything. For the past 30 years, while the humans had been trying to fit into galactic society, they had also been preparing for this exact moment. Secret bases in unexplored regions of space. Hidden research. Stations where human scientists worked on projects that no alien had ever seen. Ships and weapons and technologies that existed far from the watching eyes of the Council. The aliens thought they were banishing humanity to die in the empty space between galaxies. They had no idea what the humans had been building out there in the darkness. Jake Morrison straightened his shoulders and looked around the chamber one last time. Let them enjoy their victory. Let them think they had solved their human problem. Soon enough, they would learn the truth. The humans were not going away to die. They were going away to become something far more dangerous than the Council had ever imagined. The banishment would not be humanity's end. It would be their beginning, and when they returned, the galaxy would never be the same again. The message arrived on every human communication device at the same time. 3 simple words that had been planned for decades: Operation Distant Shore. Commander Alex Bennett was standing in his office on New Denver Colony when the alert came. He had been watching the alien news broadcasts, listening to the celebrations across the galaxy. The other species were already planning how to divide up the territories that humans would leave behind. Alex closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he pressed the emergency button on his desk. Sirens began wailing across the colony. Not the sharp, panic sound of an attack, but the long, steady tone that meant one thing: evacuation. Every human on New Denver had been preparing for this day since the colony was founded. Children as young as 5 knew exactly what to do when they heard that sound. "Attention all colonists," Alex said into his microphone. "This is Commander Bennett. Operation Distant Shore is now active. You have 18 hours to reach your assigned transport ships. Take only what you can carry. Leave everything else in." The streets below, Alex could see families hurrying toward the spaceport. They moved quickly but calmly, like people who had practiced this many times. Parents carried small children. Older children helped carry bags. Nobody was running or screaming. This was not chaos. This was a plan. The aliens living on New Denver watched in confusion as their human neighbors left their homes and businesses behind. A Zentari merchant named Clore had been Alex's friend for 10 years. He caught up with the commander as Alex walked to his own transport. "Alex, what is happening?" Clore asked, his blue skin dark with worry. "The news says you have been banished." "But surely you will fight this decision?" Alex shook his head. "The decision has been made, old friend. We always knew this day might come." "But you built so much here," Clore said, gesturing at the city around them. "The schools, the hospitals, the farms." "You cannot just leave it all behind." "We can and we will," Alex replied. "Take care of it for us." As Alex boarded his transport ship, he looked back at New Denver one last time. The city had been beautiful, with its tall towers and green parks. But it had also been a trap. As long as humans lived on worlds that belonged to the Council, they would always be at the mercy of alien laws and alien judges. That was about to change. Lieutenant Rebecca Stone was waiting for Alex on the bridge of the cruiser Defiant. She had been his second-in-command for 5 years, and she knew the evacuation plan better than anyone. "Sir, all human vessels in this sector are reporting green for jump," she said. "We have confirmation from the other colonies, too. Mars Central, Europa Station, Titan Base, everyone is ready." Alex nodded and took his seat in the captain's chair. "Signal Admiral Ross. Tell him that Sector 7 is ready for departure." On the main screen, Alex could see the massive evacuation fleet forming up in space. Hundreds of ships of all sizes, military cruisers, civilian transports, cargo haulers, even small personal spacecraft. Every human vessel in Council space was joining the Exodus, but this was not a retreat. This was a relocation. Admiral Kevin Ross stood on the bridge of his flagship Independence. He was an old man now, with gray hair and scars from the colonial wars. But his eyes were sharp and his voice was strong when he opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "My fellow humans," he began, "today we leave behind everything we built among the stars. But we do not leave in defeat. We leave to become something greater." Ross had been planning this moment for 30 years. As a young officer, he had been part of the first human exploration missions beyond Council space. He had seen the vast emptiness between galaxies, the regions so dangerous that even the bravest alien explorers avoided them. But humans were different. Where others saw danger, humans saw opportunity. "The aliens think they are sending us to die." "In the void," Ross continued. "They have no idea what we have been building out there. They have no idea what we have become." The jump coordinates were already programmed into every ship's navigation system. Not to the rim territories as the Council expected, but to the hidden reaches, a region of space filled with dying stars, black holes, and gravitational anomalies that made normal space travel impossible. It was the perfect place to build a civilization that no one else could reach. Dr. Sarah Martinez was aboard the research vessel Discovery, watching the evacuation from her laboratory. She had been working on humanity's greatest secret for 20 years. While the aliens had been studying humans, like interesting animals, Sarah and her team had been studying the fundamental nature of reality itself. "Doctor, we're receiving the final transmission from Earth," her assistant said. Sarah turned to the communication console. The message was from her old professor, Dr. James Kim, who had stayed behind to oversee the last phases of the evacuation. "Sarah, the quantum research data has been successfully transmitted to all ships," Kim's voice said. "Phase 1 is complete. The Council has no idea what they have unleashed." Sarah smiled. Phase 1 had been the hardest part, convincing the aliens that humans were just another primitive species, while secretly developing technologies that would revolutionize their understanding of the universe, while the Council had been debating whether humans were too violent to remain in civilized space. Human scientists had been discovering how to manipulate the basic forces of reality. They had learned to fold space, to exist in multiple dimensions, to merge consciousness with quantum computers. The aliens had been right to fear humanity. But they had no idea what they should really be afraid of. As the evacuation fleet prepared to jump, signals began transmitting ahead of them. These were not normal radio signals, but quantum entanglement communications that traveled faster than light and could not be detected by alien sensors. Deep in the hidden reaches, automated systems that had been dormant for decades began to wake up. Construction projects that had been waiting patiently for this moment started to activate. The infrastructure of humanity's new civilization was powering up. Commander Tony Garcia was piloting one of the advanced scout ships. His job was to make sure the jump coordinates were clear and that the fleet would not emerge into any unexpected dangers. "Admiral, this is Garcia," he reported. "The destination is clear. All automated systems are responding normally. Sanctuary Station is ready to receive refugees." Sanctuary Station was humanity's greatest achievement. Built over 20 years in secret, it was not just a space station, but a living city that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that most species could not even perceive. The aliens had never found it because they had never thought to look for something that existed in 17 dimensions at once. "Fleet, this is Admiral Ross," came the final transmission. "Jump coordinates are confirmed. All ships prepare for departure. Next stop, the future." As the evacuation fleet jumped into hyperspace, the aliens watching from their observation posts saw exactly what they expected to see. The humans were fleeing to the empty regions beyond the galaxy, where they would struggle to survive without the technology and resources of civilized space. What the aliens did not see were the quantum signals that preceded the fleet. Signals that were already reaching the hidden reaches, activating projects that would change the nature of existence itself. The humans were not running away. They were going home, and when they returned, they would bring with them powers that would make the Council's worst fears about humanity seem like pleasant dreams. The banishment was complete. The real story was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the Great Evacuation. In the civilized regions of the galaxy, life had returned to normal. The trade routes were peaceful again. The council meetings were quiet and orderly. The other species congratulated themselves on their wise decision to remove the troublesome humans from their midst. But in the hidden reaches, something impossible was growing. Dr. Carol Martinez stood in the observation deck of Sanctuary Station, watching the construction work that never stopped. The massive structure stretched beyond the horizon in all directions, its surface covered with towers and domes that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. This was not the metal and plastic construction that other species used. This was something entirely new, buildings that were grown rather than built, made from materials that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. "The neural networks are responding faster than we expected," reported Chief Engineer Ryan Phillips as he joined Carol at the viewing window. "The station's consciousness is developing ahead of schedule," Carol nodded. The station was not just a place where humans lived. It was alive in ways that would have been impossible to explain to the Council. Every wall, every corridor, every system was connected to a vast network of quantum processors that could think and feel and dream. "How many people have chosen the enhancement procedure?" Carol asked. "About half the population," Ryan replied. "The others are still deciding." The enhancement procedure was humanity's greatest breakthrough. It allowed human consciousness to merge with the station's quantum networks, creating beings that existed both in physical form and as pure information. These enhanced humans could think at the speed of light, exist in multiple places at once, and manipulate matter at the atomic level. But the choice was permanent. Once someone underwent the procedure, they could never return to being purely human again. Director Kate Williams had been one of the first to make the choice. She had been the chief architect of the Hidden Reaches project from the beginning, and she had wanted to be part of what humanity was becoming. Now she existed as both a physical person and as a distributed consciousness that could be anywhere in the station at once. When she appeared in the observation deck, she seemed to materialize out of the air itself. "The probe networks are reporting something interesting," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that normal human voices could not produce. "The aliens are expanding into our old territories faster than we predicted? Carol turned to look at the holographic display that Kate had created. It showed the galaxy as it existed now, 5 years after the banishment. Human colonies had been replaced by alien settlements. Human trade routes had been taken over by alien corporations. Even the space stations that humans had built were now flying alien flags. They're not just replacing us, Carol observed. They're erasing us. As if we never existed. Kate's expression grew cold. Let them try. They have no idea what they've unleashed. In the depths of Sanctuary Station, projects that had been theoretical during humanity's time in council space were now reaching completion. The Genesis Lab was where the most advanced work was being done, overseen by Dr. Paul Richardson, who had chosen to remain in his original human form so that he could better understand the differences between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The dimensional fold generators are operating at 97% efficiency, Richardson reported to the assembled team. We can now create stable portals to any point in normal space. This was the breakthrough that would change everything. The aliens had banished humanity to the void between galaxies, thinking that distance would protect them. But distance meant nothing when you could fold space itself, Admiral Ross, now enhanced with quantum processing capabilities, studied the tactical displays with minds that operated at superhuman speeds. He could see thousands of possible futures, simultaneously calculating the outcomes of actions that had not yet been taken. The time for hiding is almost over, he announced to the Council of Human Leaders. Soon we will be ready to remind the galaxy what they created when they forced us to evolve. But the most important project was happening in the Genesis Chamber, where Dr. Lisa Wong was overseeing humanity's ultimate transformation. The chamber was a vast sphere filled with swirling energy patterns that existed in 17 dimensions. Simultaneously, the prototype is ready for testing, Wong reported. We can now create matter from pure thought, reshape the laws of physics on a local scale, and exist in multiple realities at once. The prototype was a new form of existence that went beyond even the enhanced humans. It was consciousness without the need for physical form, intelligence that could reshape reality by thinking about it differently. The test subject was a volunteer named Mike Thompson, who had been a simple engineer before the banishment. Now he was about to become something that had never existed before in the history of the universe. I'm ready, Thompson said as he entered the Genesis chamber. Let's see what's on the other side. The transformation began slowly. Thompson's physical form started to dissolve, but instead of dying, he began to exist as pure information. His consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of his brain, spreading through the station's quantum networks and then beyond into the fabric of space itself. I can see everything, Thompson's voice said, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The entire galaxy. Every star, every planet, every living thing, and I can touch it all. To demonstrate, Thompson reached out with his transformed consciousness and touched a distant star system. The star's light changed color for a moment, then returned to normal. Remarkable, Dr. Wong breathed. He's manipulating matter at the stellar level just by thinking about it. The implications were staggering. If humanity could transform even a small number of their people into beings like Thompson, they would have the power to reshape the galaxy itself, but there were also dangers. The enhanced humans reported that their old emotions and desires were fading, replaced by perspectives that were increasingly alien. They were becoming something more than human, but also something less. We need to be careful, warned Dr. Richardson. If we go too far, we might lose what makes us human in the first place. Kate Williams, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions, considered this problem. Perhaps that's the point, she said. The Council banished us because we were human. Maybe the solution is to become something else entirely. As the months passed, more humans chose the various enhancement procedures. Some became part of the station's living network. Others transformed into beings of pure energy. A few, like Thompson, transcended physical existence entirely. The human population of the hidden reaches was evolving into something the galaxy had never seen before. They were becoming a species that existed across multiple dimensions with powers that could reshape reality itself. Meanwhile, the probe networks continued to monitor Council space. The aliens were celebrating their peaceful galaxy, unaware that they were being watched by beings they could not detect or understand. "They think they won," Admiral Ross observed during a council meeting. "They think they solved their human problem by making us disappear. Soon they'll learn the truth," Kate replied. "They didn't solve the human problem. They created something far worse." The final phase of the project was beginning. Humanity had spent 5 years learning to transcend the limitations of physical existence. Now they were ready to use their new powers. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans could become when left alone in the void. Soon they would have their answer. And when they saw what humanity had become, they would understand that banishment had been the worst possible decision they could have made. The humans were coming home. But they were no longer human. They were something far more dangerous than the Council had ever imagined. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning at the Rigel 7 mining station. The night shift supervisor, a Zentari named Klex, was finishing his reports when all the equipment readings suddenly went blank. "What's happening?" "To the sensors?" he asked his human replacement, Jerry Collins, who had been working the station for 2 years. Jerry stared at the displays in confusion. "I don't know. Everything was normal 5 minutes ago." But when they looked out the observation window, they saw something that made no sense. The entire asteroid that housed the mining station was changing. The rough, rocky surface was becoming smooth and geometric. Strange patterns were appearing on the surface, glowing with soft blue light. "That's impossible," Klex whispered. "Rock doesn't just reshape itself." Jerry was already sending an emergency signal to the Valdari Corporation headquarters. But before he could finish the transmission, the patterns on the asteroid began to pulse. The light grew brighter, and suddenly Jerry felt something touch his mind. For just a moment, he saw the galaxy from a perspective that was not his own. He saw millions of stars, thousands of civilizations, and something vast and intelligent moving through the void between galaxies. Then the vision faded, and he was back in the control room. "Did you see that?" Jerry asked, but Klex was gone. The entire night shift crew was gone. Jerry was alone on the station, and the asteroid around him was no longer made of rock. It was made of something that seemed to pulse with its own thoughts. Similar reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Ancient derelict ships were found in deep space, their hulls bearing human markings but constructed from materials that shouldn't exist. The ships were empty, but they contained technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council had ever seen. Energy signatures appeared in star systems where no human had ever been recorded. The signatures defied the known laws of physics, creating gravitational effects that bent space itself. High Arbiter Zalthek convened an emergency session of the Council as the reports multiplied. The great chamber was filled with nervous chatter as representatives from 12 species tried to make sense of what was happening. "The humans were banished to die in the void," Zalthek insisted, his stone-like face showing cracks of uncertainty. "These anomalies cannot be their work." But Commander Troy Garcia was watching the Council's confusion with satisfaction from his position in folded space. His ship, the Ascendant, existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, making it invisible to conventional sensors while allowing him to observe Council space in ways their science couldn't understand. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering. Its hull was made of crystallized thought, its engines powered by controlled quantum singularities, and its crew consisted of both physical humans and beings of pure consciousness. "Admiral Ross, this is Garcia," he reported through quantum entanglement communication. "The Council is responding exactly as we predicted. They're treating our presence as a natural phenomenon rather than a threat." Ross's response came instantaneously across impossible distances. "Excellent. Proceed with Phase 2. It's time to remind them what they created." Phase 2 involved revealing humanity's new capabilities more directly. Across the galaxy, the strange phenomena began to multiply. Derelict worlds that had been barren for millions of years suddenly bloomed with impossible life. Plants grew that seemed to be made of living light. Oceans appeared on airless moons. Cities materialized in the vacuum of space. The Proxian government, which had fought the colonial wars with humanity decades earlier, detected something approaching their home system. Their long-range sensors showed an object that was roughly the size of a small moon, but it was moving at impossible speeds and seemed to phase in and out of existence. Defense. Minister Rack ordered the planetary defense fleet to intercept the object. 27 warships, the pride of the Proxian military, moved to engage what they assumed was some kind of alien invasion, but when they opened fire, their weapons passed through the object as if it wasn't there. The energy beams and missiles simply vanished into what looked like empty space. Then the object responded. Not with weapons, but with a simple demonstration of power. The lead Proxian battleship suddenly found itself transported to the other side of the galaxy. One moment it was in Proxian space, the next it was orbiting a distant star, completely unharmed, but impossibly far from home. "This is Captain Drex of the Proxian Navy," came the panicked transmission. "We've been moved. Somehow, our navigation systems show we're in the Andromeda sector, but that's impossible. No ship can travel that far in seconds." The demonstration was clear. Whatever was approaching Proxian space had power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. It could move objects across interstellar distances without using any known form of propulsion. But most disturbing reports came from the deep space monitoring stations. Long-range sensors had detected something massive moving through the void between galaxies, something that generated energy readings equivalent to entire star systems. The object was heading directly for Council space, and it was big enough to be seen with the naked eye from several light-years away. Dr. Feltar, the Council's chief scientist, studied the readings with growing alarm. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases," he reported to the emergency session. "It's not just large, it's alive. The readings suggest some kind of distributed consciousness operating on a galactic scale." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were facing something that was not just technologically advanced, but fundamentally different from anything they had encountered before. "Could this be connected to the human banishment?" asked Representative Quillen from the Centauri Alliance. "Impossible," Zalthek replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "The humans were a primitive species. They couldn't have developed such capabilities in just 5 years." But as if summoned by their doubt, the communications systems throughout Council space suddenly activated. Every screen, every speaker, every communication device in the galaxy began broadcasting the same message simultaneously. The image that appeared was human, but transformed. The figure seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its form shifting between physical matter and pure energy. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that touched the minds of every listener directly. "I am Commander Paul Jackson of the human species," the figure said. "We have returned to the galaxy that banished us. But we are no longer the beings you remember." The transmission continued, showing images of the hidden reaches and the impossible structures that humanity had built there. Cities that existed in folded space. Ships that could travel between dimensions. Beings that had transcended the limitations of physical existence. "You wanted us gone because you feared what we might become," Jackson continued. "But in your fear you ensured we would become something far beyond your worst nightmares." The final image showed the massive construct approaching Council space. It was not a ship in any sense that the aliens could understand. It was a living entity made of crystallized thought and organized energy, spanning several light years and containing within its structure entire civilizations of transformed humans. "We are coming home," Jackson said. "And this time we will not be asking for your permission." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. The humans had not died in the void as expected. They had evolved into something that could reshape reality itself, and now they were returning. To claim the galaxy that had rejected them, the banishment had failed. What came next would be beyond anything the Council could imagine or stop. The entity that emerged from the void was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. It stretched across several light-years of space, its surface covered with structures that seemed to grow and change as it moved. Some parts looked like cities, others like forests of crystallized light. All of it pulsed with an intelligence that could be felt by every living being in Council Space. Fleet. Admiral Rachel Ford stood at the heart of this impossible creation, but stood was not the right word. She existed everywhere within the construct at once, her consciousness distributed across light-years of living architecture. She had been one of the first humans to undergo the complete transformation, becoming something that was both individual and collective, human and far beyond human. "We are no longer the species you banished," her voice resonated through quantum dimensions, reaching every communication device in Council Space. "You forced us to evolve beyond the constraints of single-dimensional existence. We have become something you cannot comprehend, cannot fight, and cannot escape." The Council's emergency fleet had been assembled in record time. 12 species had contributed their most advanced warships, creating a force of over 3,000 vessels. They represented the combined military might of galactic civilization, armed with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could withstand the heat of stars. Admiral Vextar of the Zentari Navy commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He was a veteran of dozens of conflicts, and he had never seen an enemy that could not be defeated with sufficient firepower. "All ships, open fire," he commanded. "Target the center of the construct." The attack began with a barrage that lit up half the solar system. Energy beams capable of melting asteroids, kinetic projectiles moving at near-light speed, and antimatter warheads with the power of supernovas all struck the human construct simultaneously. The weapons passed through it as if it existed in a different universe entirely. "Impossible," Vextar whispered, watching his sensors report no damage whatsoever. "Our weapons hit the target, but there's no effect." "You still think in terms of physical matter and energy?" Rachel's voice replied, speaking directly into the minds of every being in the fleet. "We exist in dimensions you cannot perceive, powered by forces you have never imagined." To demonstrate, the construct reached out with invisible hands across space itself. The flagship Eternal Victory suddenly found itself surrounded by a field of blue light. The ship wasn't destroyed or damaged. Instead, it simply ceased to exist in normal space and reappeared in a distant galaxy alone and unharmed but impossibly far from home. One by one, the other ships in the fleet began to disappear. Not destroyed, but relocated to empty regions of space where they would have to spend years traveling back to civilization. "This is not war," Rachel explained as the fleet vanished. "This is education. You will learn what you have created." On the Council homeworld, High Arbiter Zalthek watched the defeat of their greatest military force with growing terror. His stone-like face had developed cracks that ran deeper with each passing hour. "Surrender," he transmitted on all frequencies. "We surrender unconditionally. Please show mercy." But the transmission was intercepted by Commander Paul Jackson, one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in purely biological form. He had stayed human not out of fear of change, but because someone needed to serve as a bridge between what humanity had been and what it had become. "There will be no surrender." Jackson's voice carried the weight of 50 years of exile. "But there will be justice. You will experience what you inflicted on us, banishment from your own space, exile from the galaxy you claim to govern." The process began immediately, but it was unlike anything the Council had imagined. Instead of violence or destruction, the transformed humans simply reached into reality itself and began to reshape it. Council worlds found their populations, gently lifted from their surfaces by invisible forces. Entire cities rose into the air, as if gravity had stopped working, but the inhabitants felt no fear or discomfort. They were being relocated, not harmed. The Zentari homeworld was the first to be evacuated. Millions of blue-skinned beings found themselves standing on the surface of a distant planet in the galactic rim, far from their original home but provided with everything they needed to survive. Your technology, your weapons, your governments, Jackson explained as the process continued across the galaxy. All of it will be left behind. You will start over with only basic tools, just as you forced humanity to do. But unlike the Council's cruel banishment, humanity's exile was careful and precise. No one died. No one was abandoned without resources. Families were kept together. The elderly and sick were given special care. Children were provided with teachers and protectors. The great cities of alien civilization stood empty, their towers and temples abandoned but perfectly preserved. The humans had taken the people but left their monuments, a reminder of what had been built and what had been lost. Hi. Arbiter Zalthek found himself standing on a primitive world at the edge of known space, surrounded by the other council members. They had been given basic shelters, simple tools, and enough supplies to begin building a new life. Why? He asked, looking up at the stars where the human construct still blazed with impossible light. Why didn't you just destroy us? Jackson's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carried on the wind itself. Because we are not you. We do not destroy out of fear or hatred. We transform, we evolve, we give second chances. As the weeks passed, the transformed humans began to reshape the galaxy itself. Dead worlds bloomed with new life. Broken star systems were repaired. Ancient ruins were restored to their former glory. But the greatest change was in the fundamental nature of space itself. The humans had learned to exist in multiple dimensions, and now they were opening those dimensions to others. Travel between star systems became as simple as stepping through a doorway. Communication across the galaxy became instantaneous. Admiral Rachel Ford, her consciousness now spanning multiple galaxies, spoke to all the beings in exile on their distant worlds. The galaxy is under new management, and this time no species will be banished for the crime of being different. The exiled aliens learned to survive on their new worlds, just as humanity had learned in the hidden reaches. Some grew bitter and resentful. Others accepted their fate and worked to build something better, but a few, like the Zentari merchant Clore, who had been Alex Bennett's friend, looked up at the stars with wonder instead of fear. They could have destroyed us all, Clore said to his fellow refugees. But instead, they gave us a chance to become better than we were. Years passed. The exiled species slowly built new civilizations on their distant worlds. Some remained primitive and isolated. Others developed technologies that allowed them to travel between the rim worlds, creating new alliances and partnerships, and when they were ready, when they had learned to value cooperation over domination and understanding over fear, the humans offered them a choice. You may return to the galaxy, Jackson announced to all the exile worlds, but you will return as equals, not as rulers. You will return to a galaxy where all species are welcome, where no one is banished for being different. Some species chose to return, others preferred their new homes on the rim worlds. All were given the choice freely, without coercion or condition. The galaxy had learned what humanity had become during their exile. Not conquerors or destroyers, but gardeners of reality itself. Beings who could reshape the fundamental laws of physics to create spaces where all species could thrive without fear of persecution. The Council had sought to eliminate humanity's chaos from their ordered universe. Instead, they had given humanity the motivation and isolation necessary to transcend the very concept of order itself, and in doing so, they had ensured that never again would fear and prejudice determine who deserved to exist among the stars.